Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. The holidays are such a special time to celebrate with family and friends, but if you've lost a loved one, this time of year can be especially difficult. Here to help us navigate the complicated emotions of grief, we welcome the author of Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go, trauma counselor Gina Moffa. Thanks for joining us, Gina.
Thank you, Hannah. It's so good to be here with you.
This is a great topic. So if you're heading into the holiday season, you know you've got some grief, maybe a recent loss. What's a good place to start?
I think it's really important to understand that there's so much pressure out there during this holiday season to be merry and to show up and have so much perfection. But, we don't know how we're going to feel as we head into the holidays. So one of the things I like to talk with my clients about is really managing our expectations of ourselves during this time. Allow no and maybe to be our guideposts, because we're really not going to know if we're able to go to the event or we're able to show up that day. And I think it's really important to give ourselves the grace to, back out if possible. Another thing is really important to understand and allow ourselves to feel whatever we feel and whatever arises. The theme really around the holidays for grievers is to take the pressure off. There's already so much pressure out there for grievers. And so right now it's how do we get through this day as best we can while also being gentle with ourselves along the way and allowing ourselves to feel what we feel without the pressure to be merry and the pressure to be really positive.
It's a long season. It can feel like a marathon, even in the best of circumstances sometimes. And why are some of those events, why do they become so charged and even more difficult sometimes? The grief can be overcoming sometimes when you're gathering with friends and loved ones.
I think the truth of the matter is that the holidays always spotlight what we don't have. And so, whether it's the empty chair at the table, whether it's somebody that, you are used to going to the holidays to see, it's the traditions and the rituals. And they, at the end of the day, really just highlight what it is we're missing most of all. And it can be so painful to have that highlighted, especially with so much joy and so much pressure to be joyous and to give gratitude to what we have. It can be really hard. And I think society doesn't always allow the space for people to mourn during the holidays. There's just a lot of pressure to be very cheerful.
So speaking of that, how do you help manage the expectations of the people around you and make sure that you have healthy boundaries so that you can have the best experience possible as you're navigating some grief?
Yeah, it can be really tricky depending on who your family is, for sure. But I would say this, preparation is key. I think it's important to let people know ahead of time what you may or may not be able to do. That could mean, calling up the person who's hosting the holiday and saying, I'm not really sure I'm going to be up to maybe my usual pie baking, or I might not be up to a lot of conversation. I just want to let you know, so maybe take it easy on me this year. Or I just want to let you know, I may not actually be able to make it. It may be hard for me when I wake up in the morning and realize that my special person is not here, and I may need to take it slow and gentle for myself. I also think that it's important to, verbalize as best you can kind of what topics are not up for discussion, even if you're at the table, because so many things can be triggering, no matter what it is, during this holiday season. So even just to very politely say, if it's okay, I'd really rather not talk about my loss right now. And I think it's important that we plan ahead as best we can with that, because expectations can be hard to navigate.
Yeah, and what about, this is really tough for a lot of parents that they want to put on a brave face for their kids. Their kids can have a nice holiday, but how do you manage that as well?
I think it's a really important balance to have some truth in this. I think it's good to be able, as best we can, to provide a loving and comforting holiday. But if a child is going through a loss and the child is anticipating that this loss will be really important too, I think honesty is a really good way to go, depending on obviously the child's development. But acting as if the holiday is just as usual can be really disorienting and confusing to a child. So depending on their mental health status and their, if they have high anxiety, that kind of a thing, but depending on their age and development, I think it's really good to be as honest as possible and even say to your child or a child, it's going to look a little bit different this year, and I'm so sorry about that. And I'm going to do the best I can to be present and here with you, and we're going to do this together. but I'm here and you're safe, and we're going to have as best a holiday as we can given this loss.
That's really beautiful. What about if you know you've got a friend or a loved one that they're experiencing grief this season? How can we best support them?
I think really simply, we actually complicate this quite a bit.
Yeah.
We look for the right words to say, the right things to do. But when somebody's going through grief, they just want their person to be present and available. And so I say this, please just show up. Show up as best you can, show up as you, and so that there aren't any surprises. And just know that the holidays are going to be a really vulnerable, fragile time for somebody, for your friend. And so making sure that you're available to talk, to just be present and, check in on them would be a really good start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gina. That was great talking with you. Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you so much.
The book again is Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go, and we'll have more information on our website at katu.com.